In a market town in Roman Egypt, the money changers shut their tables and went home. Not for a holiday. They had been offered the emperor's coin, and they would not take it. So an official wrote it down. The order survives. Open the banks. Accept the coin, all of it, he says, except the outright counterfeit. Sit with what has to be true before a government publishes that sentence. Somebody said no first. Enough somebodies that it needed an order. So here's the question. Why would a bank refuse the state's own money? The answer is the whole life of one coin, and it ends somewhere you will not expect. Watch the frames as we go. The gold coin from our last episode is hidden in this one, exactly once. Timestamp it if you catch it. Start with what the thing was supposed to be. A denarius, silver, near enough pure, about 4 grams of it. Call it a day's wage for a working man. And the biggest single thing the empire spent it on was soldiers, which matters more than anything else in this story because of a piece of arithmetic every emperor inherited on his first morning in the job. The army is the largest standing expense in the world. The taxes do not cover it, and the army is the only body of men who can remove you. Septimius Severus put it to his 2 sons from his deathbed, and Cassius Dio, a serving senator, writing inside his own lifetime, took the line down. Be harmonious. Enrich the soldiers. Scorn all other men. Now, there is exactly one lever that pays soldiers without raising a tax or winning a war. You make the coin smaller. Nero pulls it first in the year 64. A little less weight, a little less silver, the same number stamped on the face. And here is the part that decides the next 200 years. Nobody refuses it. Nobody riots. Nobody, as far as we can tell, even notices. It worked, which is exactly why it never stopped. A century and a half later, a man called Macrinus sits down to write a letter he does not want to write. He has just become emperor. He has inherited Caracalla's army and Caracalla's promises to it. Dio quotes him, the increase in their pay comes to 280 million sesterces annually. He cannot pay it. He also cannot stop paying it because the men it is owed to are armed. So take his number and put it into metal, which nobody seems to have bothered doing. 280 million sesterces is 70 million denarii. At the standard Augustus set, that single yearly bill needs somewhere around 260 tons of silver. In Caracalla's own coin, it needs about 100. We ran that at the end of every range that flatters Caracalla most, and the gap is still more than 100 tons of silver. Every year, on the pay rise alone. He did not go and find that difference. He took it out of every coin already sitting in somebody else's hand. And in 215, he stops being subtle about it. A new coin, stamped as 2 denarii, carrying the silver of about 1.5. You can make a shopkeeper in a garrison town accept that. A bank is a different problem. How does anyone know how much silver was in these things? You drill into them. For decades, the figures came off the surface, and the surface lies, wear and corrosion pull the cheap metal out and leave the silver sitting on top, so a battered coin reads richer than it ever was. Kevin Butcher and Matthew Ponting went into the cause instead. Every number got worse. Then the 3rd century arrives, and the arithmetic stops being gradual. Emperors last months. Each one buys the army again on the way in. By the 260s, the coin is a bronze blank with silver washed over it, and in your hand, across a few weeks of ordinary use, the silver rubbed off. Which brings us back to the money changers. That order is dated, the 24th of November, 260. And we should be straight with you about it, because the historians aren't agreed. It is year 1 of 2 men who had just declared themselves emperors and would be dead within 12 months. So the bankers may have been refusing a regime rather than a metal. Others read it as trust in the coin itself finally giving way. Nobody can settle that. What isn't in dispute is the shape of it. Whether to accept the state's money had become a question a bank could answer with no. Watch what the state does next, because it does not argue. It stops using its own currency. Tax starts being collected in things. grain, oil, cloth. It begins under Severus as an emergency levy. It becomes a habit across the century, and under Diocletian it is formalized into the machine that funds the army, payment in kind in place of the cash wage. Then, in 301, the price edict. Maximum prices fixed across a vast list of goods, with the death penalty attached to breaking them. Our fullest witness to what followed is Lactantius, and you should know who he is. A Christian writer describing the emperor who persecuted him. He reports blood and goods vanishing from the market. Take both as accusations. What isn't in doubt is the ending. The edict was ignored into uselessness inside 4 years. Line those two up. The state fixes what things cost and stops taking its own coin for them. Every refusal in this story ran in the same direction, and the last institution to refuse the coin was the one that minted it. So they built a new one. Constantine solidus, gold 72 to the Roman pound, about 4.5 grams. Not shaved, not washed, not quietly reduced. It holds its weight and its purity for roughly 700 years. They solved it. They actually solved it. And inside 170 years, the Western Empire is gone anyway, while the Eastern half goes on spending that same coin into the 11th century and lasts until 1453, which is the part the popular version cannot survive. If bad money killed Rome, good money should have saved it. Rome had good money for the whole of its last century in the West, and it made no difference at all, and the honest footnote makes it worse, because the solidus was gold, and most people never held one. The small change in the market stayed rotten. So the coin didn't kill the empire. The coin is where you could read it first. A coin is the one object on which a state has to write down what it can actually afford, and Rome had been writing that down in shrinking silver for 200 years before anyone shut a bank over it. That is the whole trick, and it hasn't changed. What money is made of has never been the metal. It's whether the person across the table takes it. If you want more fortunes taken apart with the receipts attached, subscribe. Next time, a convicted murderer talks an entire kingdom into paper. This is Rags to Riches.